People from nearby rural towns had gathered outside an old wooden cabin on the edge of a forest. The old spiritual healer who had lived there for decades had passed away. Among his few belongings, there was a heavy iron box that he had kept with him for nearly 45 years. After his death, one of his followers finally opened it. The moment the lid lifted, everyone standing around felt a chill run down their spine. Inside the box lay a strange skull, something that did not fully resemble a human or an animal. Its jaw looked like that of a wolf, long and sharp, while the back of the skull appeared eerily human. About 20 years earlier, a desperate woman had once come to that same cabin, deep in the woods of a remote area in northern Montana. Her teenage son lay weak and barely breathing, his body almost lifeless. She had been crying uncontrollably, begging the old man to save him. She had folded her hands and pleaded, saying that he was her only hope now, and that she could not bear to lose her son. The old healer had calmly advised her to take the boy to a good doctor in the city, explaining that wandering through forests and relying on old rituals would not cure him. But the woman had refused to accept that answer. She had said that doctors had already given up and declared that her son did not have much time left. Still, she insisted she would not let him die at any cost. She begged the old man to do whatever it took, offering him anything in return. The healer had hesitated and explained that the knowledge she was asking about was something he had abandoned years ago. He had made a promise to his teacher never to practice it again. He had said he could not break that vow. Hearing this, the woman had lost control. In her desperation, she had picked up a small blade and threatened to end her own life right there. That moment had forced the old man to stop her. He had finally agreed to help, but warned her that her son had very little time left. He had told her that the ritual would have to be performed the very next night, and that it was extremely dangerous. Life could be saved, but it could just as easily be lost. The following night was a full moon. The sky was clear, and the moonlight spread across the dense forest, casting long, eerie shadows. Deep in the woods, the old healer had tied a large, ferocious wolf to a thick tree. The animal had regained consciousness not long before and was growling loudly, its sharp teeth visible in the pale light. Nearby, the woman's 17-year-old son lay unconscious on the ground. Around him were strange ritual items carefully arranged. The woman sat close by, quietly sobbing. The old man had explained that the full moon was a time when wolves were believed to be at their strongest, and according to the old traditions, such rituals were never meant to be performed on this night. But he had also said that if nothing was done, the boy would not survive. So, he had chosen to go against his own rules. He then began chanting in a low, steady voice. As the night deepened and the clock struck midnight, he took a knife and cut across the wolf's throat. The animal let out a terrifying scream that echoed through the forest, making everyone present freeze in fear. Blood poured out from the wound, dark and heavy. Without stopping his chants, the old man used the wolf's blood and spread it across the boy's entire body. His eyes remained closed as his voice grew louder, continuing the ritual with intense focus. At the end of the ritual, the old healer placed a few drops of blood on the boy's tongue and forced a few more drops into his body through his nose. Almost instantly, the boy's body began to react. He started shaking violently, his arms and legs jerking uncontrollably, as if he were having a severe seizure. His body twisted and thrashed until he crashed into the tied wolf. Blood now began to flow from the boy's own body as well. Then, just as suddenly as it had started, everything went still. After a long struggle, the wolf also collapsed and died. Once the ritual was complete, they all quietly returned to the cabin. The next morning, the boy woke up, confused and irritated. He asked his mother what had been smeared all over his body, complaining about the terrible smell. Without waiting for an answer, he rushed to clean himself, scrubbing his skin over and over again. His name was Ethan now, and he appeared completely healthy. It was hard to believe that just hours earlier, he had been pale and on the brink of death. Over the next few days, his strength returned quickly. In fact, he seemed stronger than ever. but something about him had changed. Ethan began demanding meat every single day. If he didn't get it, he would lose his temper in frightening ways. Sometimes he would slam his head against the wall, and other times he would push his mother so hard that she would fall to the ground. His mother, Claire, believed this behavior was just a result of his illness, that he was weak, irritable, and recovering. But in reality, it was the beginning of something far more dangerous. A few days later, on another full moon night, Claire and Ethan were asleep inside their small wooden house near the forest. Suddenly, in the middle of the night, Claire woke up to strange and unsettling sounds. Ethan was groaning in pain. Within moments, his pain turned into violent convulsions. He screamed loudly and began smashing his head against the walls. His entire body stiffened unnaturally, his limbs twisting as if something inside him was breaking and reshaping. Then, before her eyes, the impossible began to happen. Ethan's body slowly started transforming. His bones shifted, his muscles stretched, and his face twisted into something no longer human. He let out a horrifying, piercing howl that echoed through the night. Within moments, he had turned into a full-grown wolf, a savage, monstrous creature. Without hesitation, the creature leaped out of the window and disappeared into the darkness. Claire stood frozen in fear, unable to believe what she had just witnessed. She kept thinking that if anyone found out about this, they would surely kill her son. She didn't know what to do or who to turn to. Outside, the transformed Ethan was overwhelmed by a powerful hunger. Following the scent of flesh, he quickly found a dog sleeping outside a nearby house. With brutal force, he attacked it, tearing its body apart with his claws. He devoured the meat eagerly, as if driven by something uncontrollable. After some time, he carried pieces of the flesh back home in his mouth. The next morning, a terrible stench filled their house. From the yard to the inside rooms, there were pieces of raw meat and blood scattered everywhere. Flies buzzed loudly over the remains. A neighbor, Mrs. Wilson, stopped by and complained about the foul smell, assuming that some stray animal must have dragged in a dead rabbit. She offered to help clean up, unaware of the horrifying truth. For the next month, everything seemed calm again. Claire felt relieved and hopeful, believing that her son might finally be normal. But deep down, what she didn't realize was that this silence was only the calm before another storm. And once again, the full moon night arrived. At exactly midnight on the next full moon, Ethan's body began to twist in pain again. Within moments, he transformed into a massive wolf-like creature. As soon as he broke free from his home, he rushed into the forest, driven by a violent hunger, and eventually reached the old healer's secluded cabin. Outside the cabin, one of the followers was asleep, unaware of the danger creeping toward him. The creature attacked without warning. With claws sharper than blades, it tore through the man's chest in a single strike. Blood spilled onto the ground, and the beast dropped down, licking it greedily like a savage predator. Then it ripped off the man's arm and threw it aside before tearing into the flesh, feeding without restraint. The horrifying sounds woke another follower inside the cabin. As he stepped outside, he froze in terror. In front of him stood a towering wolf-like creature, easily over 6 feet tall, feeding on human flesh. He could not believe his eyes. Creatures like this, he thought, only existed in stories. Panicked, he ran back inside to alert the old healer. Breathing heavily, he told the old man that their companion had been killed by a monstrous wolf, one that walked like a human and looked unlike anything he had ever seen. The old man immediately understood. With a grave expression, he revealed that the creature was not just any beast. It was Ethan. He admitted that this was exactly what he had feared would happen. Still, he assured the frightened follower that he would find a solution. He decided to leave at dawn on a long journey to the mountains of Colorado, where his own teacher lived in isolation. Before leaving, he gave strict instructions. If he did not return by the next full moon, they must capture Ethan and tie him up before midnight so he could not harm anyone. The old man left the next morning, and days slowly passed. As the next full moon approached and he still had not returned, the remaining followers grew anxious. On the day of the full moon, they managed to capture Ethan while he was still in human form and brought him back to the cabin. Using thick ropes, They tied him tightly, hoping it would be enough to hold him. As night fell, the forest grew unusually restless. The sounds of wild animals echoed louder than ever, as if they could sense the danger approaching. When the clock struck midnight, Ethan's eyes turned a deep, glowing red. He let out a terrifying scream, demanding to be set free. His body began to change once again. His nails grew long, black, and razor-sharp, his body covered in thick hair, and his face twisted into something monstrous. With a sudden burst of unnatural strength, he snapped the ropes as if they were nothing. In a flash, he lunged at one of the followers. The man barely had time to react before the creature tore him apart. His screams were cut short as the beast ripped his body into pieces and began devouring him, chewing the flesh with horrifying sounds. Blood dripped from its jaws, covering its body completely. Then, slowly, the creature turned its head toward the last remaining follower. The man stood frozen in the corner, unable to move, his body trembling as he stared at the nightmare in front of him. The creature lunged toward the second follower. In a moment of desperation, the man quickly pulled out a knife he had hidden at his waist. He was just about to strike when suddenly, Claire rushed in between them and pushed him aside. She shouted that no matter what happened, she would not let anyone kill her son. But before she could react further, the creature attacked her. With one powerful swipe of its claw, she was thrown across the ground. Her head struck a large rock, and she died instantly. The beast, now completely consumed by bloodlust, showed no sign of stopping. With every kill, its brutality only seemed to grow stronger. After killing his own mother, Ethan turned back toward the follower, ready to tear him apart as well. Just as he was about to attack, the old healer returned at the perfect moment. Without hesitation, he struck the creature with a blade that had been prepared with ancient rituals. The sharp strike cut into the beast, and blood began to pour out. Leaving the follower behind, the creature growled and charged toward the old man. He narrowly stepped aside, but the wolf's claws still managed to slash into his leg. Despite the injury, the old man stood his ground. The beast stepped back, then leaped again with full force. This time, the old man did not miss. With precise timing, he drove the blade straight into the creature's heart. The wolf let out a deafening roar and collapsed to the ground. Without wasting a second, the old man struck again and again, making sure it could not rise. Finally, he severed its head, ending the nightmare once and for all. As silence returned to the forest, the old man understood the true weight of his mistake. He realized why his teacher had made him promise never to use that forbidden knowledge again. To remind himself of the consequences for the rest of his life, he sealed the creature's head inside an iron box and kept it with him. Not long after, he abandoned the cabin and disappeared into the remote mountains of Alaska, choosing to live in isolation. The locked box remained with him, becoming a dark secret that no one knew about. And now, after 45 years, that secret had finally been revealed. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more scary stories like this. Follow for more chilling horror tales.